Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies on how to master that sales conversation. And today we have a special episode for you because this is an on-air coaching call with one of the members of my Sales Maven Society. I am extremely excited to share with you Maelisa Hall. Maelisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited to have you. All right. Well, tell the audience a little bit about you and about your business so they'll get a sense, it'll make sense to them as we kind of dig into your question.
Yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist who does not do therapy. So I have two online businesses, and the one that I have the most questions about is newer, just a little over a year old. And in that business, my digital Maven, another Maven business.
Another Maven.
We help therapists create websites and improve their SEO practices so that they can get more clients more easily, and so that their online presence actually reflects who they are.
Yeah. So if you are a therapist listening to this and you need help with your website and SEO, Maelisa is your gal.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So it's fun to have kind of the unique perspective of being in that role. But then having this sort of specialized knowledge that most therapists don't have. Like a lot of therapists that I'm talking to on the phone, don't even know what SEO stands for or really what it is. They've just heard the term, right? So, so it would be a lot of work for them to learn all of this stuff that they would need to do in order to set up a website. And then, not only set up the website, but actually make it effective for getting clients.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So, and thank goodness that there's somebody out there like you who will do this, because how else are people going to find them? Right. Like I always think, maybe I'm wrong, but for therapists, you have to be really specific about how you market, right? Because you have, is it HIPAA and all the stuff that goes into that? So are there regulations around that?
Yeah, there are regulations. And then there's a lot of kind of like ethical practices that are, honestly, the field of mental health is a little like behind the times when it comes to online stuff. So we're usually like, I would say a good 5 to 10 years behind a lot of other industries. So it makes people really nervous because they do have a license, like we actually, like even I right now, have a license that like could be taken away potentially by the board if you do something unethical or, quote unquote wrong. And so that makes people nervous to adopt new things and kind of test things out. So we're very, very slow to do that. So I would say it's very common now, and there's not a whole lot that you have to do, but like a good example would be on a website. Like you can't make a promise. Like you can't promise that somebody's going to get better because you don't know that. And that would be unethical to say that. So it's kind of like how do you, which would be any good marketing would offer some kind of promise of what you can offer. So how do you ethically make that promise, and what is it that you're promising?
Okay. This totally makes sense. And yeah, again, thank goodness that you are out here doing this for therapists and counselors out there who need this support. Okay. So let's dig into your question. How can I serve you today?
Yeah. So I'm really excited to kind of dig into this. And this, I think, highlights how sales like intertwines with all these other areas of business, right? So kind of with like my pricing and packaging. So I have 3 different main offers on the website, that are advertised with prices and everything. And the lower level, what I call like the starter website, is very basic and has like you choose from a couple of templates. I guess I should back up. So my goal with offering these websites to therapists is that I know there are other services out there that they can seek services from, right? So they can pay a much lower monthly fee, for example, and get a website created by a different company. What I want to offer is like an all-in-one package, or what we do offer. So it means that your copywriting, your graphic design, your website setup, and the SEO research are all in one. So all you have to do is sign up with us. You get everything. And to me, that's a huge benefit because you don't have to then seek out these other people. And then also, one thing that therapists are often worried about is whether or not each of those people would have experience in their industry. So this way they know, like, one-stop shop, and you know that all of those things we understand your industry, and that's all handled. So regardless of the package, all 4 of those things are included.
Okay.
But there's different levels. So that starter website would have kind of more like you're going to choose from a template of, like, for example, like sample branding boards or one of 2 website templates. So there are fewer options and flexibility. So it's still personalized, and it's highly unlikely your website's going to look exactly like somebody else's. But we are basically saying, here's A and B, or here's A through E, choose which one you want. The second package, which is the most popular, the professional website, includes more personalized options. So like, for example, as far as process goes, I start with those same templates, but I just use that as like a starting point to get an idea of what their design preferences are. And then we create a whole personalized branding package as part of the website. And make sure that they have, for example, like one therapist that we worked with does a lot of groups. So one thing she had was all these group flyers. So we created, flyers that matched the branding of the website so that she had, more cohesive branding and marketing. So we personalize that based on like what the preferences are, what, each therapist does. And that also includes more website pages. So for example, people who have a group practice and need like a web page for every therapist there, that's a lot more, doing an about page for every single therapist than for someone who's just kind of on their own. They really don't need as many.
Okay.
The third package is no one has used yet. And that's kind of like my pie in the sky package, which is more like for a therapist who wanted to start doing like online courses or selling products and wanted help setting all of that up instead. So I feel like that package is fairly clear and people know right away whether or not they want that. For me, the difficulty is I feel like I'm, thanks to your sales script and the Sales Maven Society, have gotten so much better at the sales conversations and have a high conversion rate of turning people into clients. The difficulty is explaining to them why option B is better than option A or vice versa.
Okay.
Basically, is it the lower package or the mid-range package that's better? And I feel like a lot of people are just going for the lower package because it's cheaper.
Okay. So the question then is how to sell more of the package B?
Yes. Because I think for a lot of people, and it's not for everybody, right? Like if somebody tells me they're just starting out, it's a stretch for them to pay for option A even, and they have no website at all. Like this will benefit them. Option A will definitely benefit them.
Right. Yeah.
But if they tell me that, they want to do all these other things in the future, or they want to have a blog too. And so now or they offer all these different specialties. Like we're literally getting into just writing more web pages, which is a lot more work. And also there is a benefit if people can afford it to having a more professional, full branding presence from the beginning.
Yeah, of course. Okay.
Because some people can. I would say almost everyone who contacts me, even if they have no web presence, no website at all, they are not new in their business. They're all contacting me when they're ready to level up.
Okay.
So it's not that they just open their doors. It's that, they do have an income coming in already.
Okay. So I have a couple questions and then I have a couple suggestions and then we'll see what feels like it's going to resonate with you and in that conversation. So in the discovery call, because here's where I think the kind of the crux of the kind of issue is going to be, is are you asking some leading questions that are setting them up so that when you lay out the package, it makes sense that the recommendation is going to be this package B? And so what I mean by a leading question, for instance, is asking something like, are you considering or do you already have a blog that you want attached to your website? Or another kind of leading question might be, are you looking for an overall comprehensive brand that includes your, I'm trying to think of what the term is, like your collateral. So are you asking that in the discovery?
So that's a good point. I'm not asking as pointed questions about that. Yeah, I'm asking kind of more general, like, what is it you want your website to do? Or, what are your goals for your website? That kind of thing, but not digging into like how personalized do you want, maybe even asking something like that, like how personalized do you want the branding to feel, or how important is design to you, or like what you're asking.
Yeah. And the reason why I think you have to, because I always say in the discovery, all roads should lead to hiring you. And they may say, like, I'm not really interested in a full brand, or I don't really need any collateral at this point, or, it's just me. I'm a solo therapist, so there aren't going to be multiple about pages or whatever. But they don't necessarily know that these are options because we haven't gotten to the place where we're going to propose something. So we do want to ask some questions that kind of set you up that when you are laying out the proposal, you're going to recommend package B based on their answers. And so I would say taking a look at your discovery questions, and not that you need to have a ton of discovery questions. And as a matter of fact, if I'm doing a discovery, I'm probably doing it in 30 minutes or less. Like I want to know, is this an ideal client? If not, then bless and release. If this is an ideal client, where do they fit in the services that I offer? And so I'm going to ask leading questions that help me determine, oh, this person prefers, one-on-one work with me, right? Or they've got some things that they don't necessarily want to share in a private group. So they're an ideal client for private work, right? So I just would say, take a look at your discovery questions, make sure that you're asking some questions that lead down that path that's going to make it an easy recommendation. Now, it doesn't mean they're always going to pick package B, but it's easier when you lay it out and you can refer back. My recommendation based on what we've shared or what you've shared with me so far is package B. And here's why. It's got this opportunity for some additional pages. There's some collateral branding to give you a consistent look and feel that's going to help you really establish your brand. And then you go, and that's my recommendation. How does that sound to you? And they're like, well, it sounds a little bit out of my price range. Then you go, great, we have package A, which is this other package, and you still get this, and this. You just give up the branding and the multiple pages. And now it starts to make it easier for them to go, well, I don't want to give up those things. So maybe I do want to invest a little bit more to get this full, robust option, because that that's the best solution for somebody. Now, if they don't have the money, they don't have the money. And I'm not suggesting that you sell something that somebody doesn't need, but sometimes they don't know what they need unless you ask the question that plants the seed that goes, oh, collateral? I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah. Or like one of the things that I often end up talking to people about that they're not aware of is I'll say like Google ranks web pages, not websites, which isn't 100% accurate, but it's mostly true, right?
Okay.
And so that means like, and this is something I have not really been asking people about their practice and like details about their specialties. Mm-hmm. But I'm realizing that could actually be a perfect question to kind of lead into this, because if they tell me I have, these 4 specialties that I really want to focus on, like, for example, couples therapy, like people who search for couples therapy. They don't search for other terms. They don't search for anxiety. They don't search for, et cetera. And so if you offer couples, like we have to have a couples page, its own page. And then we set up all the SEO for that page to rank. And that's ideally what you want to show up, not your homepage, right? So, if they tell me they have 4 different specialties, then I know right off the bat that package A, while, they could of course choose just 2 of those to have services pages for, we can optimize those pages way better with package B because we can really focus the SEO efforts and all of that on building out each of their specialty areas.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that it's oftentimes it kind of comes down to what are the questions that you're asking in the discovery. And then when you're laying out the proposal, that you're referencing back their answers from the discovery. So it's essentially, the sales process isn't about trying to convince anybody to do something. It's more about giving them the option that's going to meet their need. But we have to help them understand what the needs are. Now, anybody listening, please don't think that I'm suggesting that you send somebody a 13-page questionnaire to fill out, right? To then propose to them. Like, we need to talk if you're doing that. And actually I had a client last year that was doing that. And I was like, no, you're scaring people off. They're not going to get there. But once you get them on that phone call with you or on that Zoom session with you, this is the time to ask some of these leading questions that help them go like, oh, I hadn't really thought about it. Like one question that I ask pretty consistently is, do you know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your products or service? And most people are like, what? Well, I asked that question because I teach creating curiosity. It's a huge part of the sales, the selling staircase and the step in the selling staircase. So that could lead to it being a training on it, or it could lead to doing some private coaching with somebody on it. So that's the kind of questions that I want you to think about in the discovery. And then the other piece that I want to suggest to you is when you're laying out your packages for them, and maybe you're doing this now, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you this, but I always lay out of the options that are the best fit for them, the most expensive package first, and then work your way down. Are you doing that?
So no. And when you were saying something about that a little bit ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm explaining option A and B at the same time. And I've heard you say that. And so I totally realized like, wait a minute, why am I doing that?
Yeah. And it's okay to have the two options, but you want to always start with the bigger package first. And it's really because as humans, we don't like to give things up. We don't want things taken away. So when you go, here's all that you're going to get in package B, and I probably wouldn't call it package B, but we're just calling it package B for the sake of the listener so that we stay consistent. But here's what I would recommend, or here's what you get in package B. Now, if these things aren't important to you, the branding, the multiple pages, some of the SEO that's going to help target people specifically for your specialties, we could look at package A. And package A is going to give you this. You just don't get all these other things. Of those two options, which do you prefer? And then they're going to go, well, we want package B every time, right? Like they're going to want package B because it's a better option for their business. Doesn't mean that they're always going to buy package B, because if it comes down to money, it's better to have a website than no website, right? So maybe package A. But if you're trying to lay it out with package A first and then you move to package B, it sounds like you're trying to upsell. It's like, oh, she's just adding all these extra things in here, which is just like ching, 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 money, money, money. She's just asking for money. But that's actually not what you're doing. You're trying to give them the best option. So start with the most expensive and then work your way down.
Yeah. And a question related to that, because I have gotten this question, I think like twice in the last month.
Okay.
When people are like, I can tell that they're basically like, they're mulling over like, do I want A or B? Again, just to be consistent with the naming. And they'll ask me, well, is it possible to start with option A and then move up to option B if I feel like I need it later?
What's your answer?
My answer so far has been that we can, of course, add web pages if that's what we find is needed, but that it would be on the charge would be per web page.
Yeah.
So it could potentially, so that the pricing could end up being much more expensive.
Right. So the way that you answer that, like I love to say yes to people. Anytime somebody asks me a question, like, could I do this or this? Like, I'm fine with saying yes to it as long as they understand the implications, right? Like the answer is yes, we could do this. Understand though that overall, it's going to be a significant more like bigger investment to do it that way. And from a consistency standpoint, there's some advantage to doing all of this now and having this, set up for you, having your SEO ready to go. And really, it's about the reason you're doing this in the first place is to attract your ideal clients. So by not having those pieces now, we're missing out on attracting some of those ideal clients, which ultimately is going to pay for this website.
That is helpful to think of it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you can definitely say yes to them. And so that's the answer is yes. And here's what you want to think about. Here's some of the concerns I would have around doing that. And then if they are asking if that's a crazy question and the answer is like, heck no, it's also okay to say, I appreciate you asking. That would not be my recommendation. And here's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more we're kind of going through this, I'm realizing like just asking them more about their actual practice will really give me better information to explain exactly what. Because I can explain in theory, like to any therapist, the SEO principles and kind of why it would be helpful in general, but knowing specifically about their practice and being able to say, then we wouldn't be able to do X, Y, and Z.
And that's going, the fact of the matter is that we really only care about how everything impacts us. So as the prospect or as the potential client here, when you can personalize your answers and tailor it to what they have said they want and what they need, then it brings it to life versus you giving kind of like an overview of how SEO is impacted. That won't necessarily connect to them because you're asking their brain to do a lot of work to go, how does this impact me? Instead, you can state it because you've asked the right questions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really helpful because I think I can still keep the questions fairly simple and few, but actually get better information to sort of train them. Because there definitely is a part of this sales call that is kind of like I do have to teach people a little tiny bit in order for them to understand why SEO is important or why having us do the copywriting is such a huge benefit, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. And the one of the questions that you could ask around that, or the way to frame the question in your discovery, is to say, what do you already know about SEO? Then it's going to give them an opportunity to tell you what they do know. So you're not focusing on things that they already know. And then I love when you can reinforce when people are right. So you could say, now only do this if it's true. You're right about SEO, this, and this. And you always say, and then you insert something else in there that would be useful or that they may not be aware of yet. And now they want to agree with you because who doesn't like to be right? Like, I love to be right. And most people like to be right. So when you can reinforce like, okay, here's what you know about SEO and here's something else that we'll want to think about for your website. Now it's like, oh, okay. It's bringing it to life for them. They want to agree because you just told them they're right. It's like, it's a much nicer way to get that information delivered to them. So that would be a question I would put in the discovery.
Cool. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to come on and share and ask your question. Hopefully this would be hopefully it will be a really good learning opportunity for those who are listening on what's going on with your discovery questions, because that may actually determine how you have an opportunity to lay out packages to your client. And then always top-down selling, always top-down selling, give them the package that makes the most sense and that's the most robust first, and then work your way down. So I'm excited to hear in the Sales Maven Society how this goes for you in your next call. You let us know. And before we bring this to a close, I always like to ask, what has been one benefit that you've received out of being a part of the Sales Maven Society?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the biggest one was having that script already written out of questions to ask on a discovery call. And I mean, so even though like we're improving it right now, even moving from what I was doing before to using that made this huge increase in the number of people who not that they always choose to say yes right away, but people I've noticed are coming back So they'll say, no, not right now, or even signed up with like the cheaper company that I referenced and then had a bad experience in their first month or two and then come right back to me.
Awesome.
That's been huge that everybody's like, not everyone is saying yes, but it also gives me more confidence, like that even the people who are saying not right now, that there is real potential for them coming back because I'm actually starting to see that. So it's not a no, it's just a not right now.
Yeah.
So I think for me, having that has been amazing. And then also in the community, like seeing when people post questions, because for example, this is a question I could have posted in the group and you probably would have given very similar answers, right there. And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, or you're not thinking of certain situations. So seeing other people post those questions and then seeing answers you provide is really helpful.
Awesome. Well, we love having you in the community. Thank you for being there. And thank you, like I said, for coming on and giving this an opportunity for somebody to learn from what you're going through right now. And as we bring this to a close, how can people find out more about you? Where do they go? Where can we find you?
Yeah, you can go to mydigitalmaven.com. And that is our website for everything, websites and SEO for therapists, for other mental health therapists.
So that'll be in the show notes. So go check out Maelisa if you need some support from this. She's your gal. Go do that. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.